On a broadcast tonight, Korea for the first time opens its casino market to foreign operators to boost the tourism industry. Korea's auto parts exporters are riding high in the global market, logging more than $25 billion in their outbound shipments last year. Plus, defying the West, Russian President Vladimir Putin recognizes Crimea as an independent nation, paving the way for it to be absorbed into Russia. But these stories and more next on Primetime News. Good evening to our viewers in Korea, and hello to those of you who are watching from around the world. It's Tuesday, March 18th here in Seoul. I'm Yoo Ji-hye.
And I'm Sean Lim. Thank you so much for joining us. We begin with what could be a major change to the tourism industry. For the first time, Korea has opened its tightly controlled casino market to a foreign operator.
It has given a green light to the construction of a foreign-owned casino resort to attract more tourism spending from China. Our Park Ji-won has our top story.
The Ministry of Culture, Sports and Tourism said at a press briefing Tuesday that it has granted approval to the Indonesian-Chinese enterprise Lippo Group and U.S.-based Caesars Entertainment to open the casino, which will be for foreigners only. The casino will be located some 50 kilometers west of Seoul on Yeongjong-do Island, which is part of the Incheon Free Economic Zone and the location of Incheon International Airport. The approval is for the first phase of the consortium's plan to develop a high-end resort. Phase 1 will see construction of 2 hotels, serviced residences, and a convention center for an estimated cost of roughly $700 million, and completion is expected in 2018. The entire development is expected to cost over $2 billion and will be completed by 2023. The Lippo and Caesars consortium first submitted the proposal to develop the casino resort last year, but the proposal was rejected on the grounds that the plan did not fulfill certain credit rating qualifications. The consortium won approval for the plan after enlarging the size of the investment and submitting suitable credit rating assessments.
The approval is only valid when the joint venture successfully implements certain conditions, such as undergoing an annual audit. This decision was made after a thorough evaluation by related ministries, with the goal of boosting the nation's tourism industry.
The government expects the casino to boost employment and bring in tax revenue, as well as strengthen the competitiveness of the domestic casino industry. It will be the 17th casino in Korea, 16 of which are exclusively for foreigners. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
Amid ongoing political wrangling over a nuclear security-related bill, President Park Geun-hye called for quick ratification of the long-pending legislation.
The Korean leader, who is set to attend the upcoming Nuclear Security Summit in The Hague, stressed that it would hurt the international community's confidence in Korea if the bill has not passed before then. Our Yu Lian has more.
President Park Geun-hye has urged lawmakers to promptly pass a nuclear security bill ahead of her attendance at the 2014 Nuclear Security Summit in the Netherlands next week. The NSS is a biennial gathering of world leaders aimed to prevent nuclear terrorism. At a cabinet meeting Tuesday, President Park expressed regret that the National Assembly has failed to approve legislation related to protecting nuclear materials and preventing nuclear disasters in the 2 years since Seoul hosted the global conference. In the 2012 Seoul communiqué, participating nations had agreed to work toward preventing criminals and terrorists from getting their hands on nuclear materials.
다른 나라보다 앞장서서 나가기는커녕 약속한 것마저 지키지 못한다면 국제적으로 얼마나 신뢰를 잃게 되겠습니까? 부디 조속한 시일 내에 국회에서 관련 법안을 통과시켜 주실 것을 부탁드립니다.
Both the ruling and main opposition parties agree that the nuclear security legislation is important, but the bill has been held up in the National Assembly due to political wrangling over other issues of contention. The ruling Saenuri Party condemned the main opposition Democratic Party for refusing to pass the urgent bill, calling the move political warfare. It has asked that an extraordinary session of the National Assembly be convened on Thursday, but without the DP's cooperation, the bill is unlikely to pass. The DP says the Saenuri Party is to blame for the impasse because it has refused to pass bills related to the public's livelihood. Yurian, Arirang News.
And staying in the political sphere, a three-horse race is on among the ruling Saenuri Party's main contenders who are vying to become Seoul's next mayor in June.
Right, the party is expected to choose a candidate before the end of next month. Our political correspondent Kim Young-gil caught up with the party hopefuls on the campaign trail.
The Saenuri Party has three competitive candidates vying to become the party's sole mayoral candidate. Tycoon-turned-politician Chung Mong-jun, former Prime Minister Kim Hwang-sik, and Supreme Council member Lee Hae-hoon. Seven-term lawmaker Chung paid a visit to the Noryangjin Fish Market in Seoul early Tuesday in a bid to win the hearts of everyday citizens.
The Noryangjin Fisheries Market is a symbol of Seoul. The market provides fresh seafood to some 10 million Seoul citizens every morning. If I become the Seoul mayor, I will make Noryangjin a place where people can come and enjoy.
Chung and ex-Prime Minister Kim are seen as the front-runners to challenge the incumbent mayor Park Won-soon. In a joint survey conducted by Gallup Korea and the 중앙일보 newspaper, Park was ahead of Chung by only 0.4 percentage points, well within the margin of error with 42.5%. Kim trails Park 34.3% to 47%. 66-year-old Kim, who served as prime minister under former President Lee Myung-bak, has vowed to make Seoul a vibrant city. He snapped at the recent merger of the main opposition Democratic Party and independent lawmaker An Chol-soo's political group.
The term new politics has been sullied by the main opposition bloc, which champions the breaking of old political practices. I think it's better to use the term upstanding politics.
Former two-term lawmaker Lee Hae-hoon also laid out her vision for Seoul.
Citizens want Seoul to become an economically vibrant city again. I will do that by making the capital a financial, medical, and tourist hub. I will also create more jobs and stabilize the real estate market.
It's widely thought any three of the Saenuri candidates would, if they won, use the 4-year mayoral term as a springboard to run in the 2017 presidential race. The ruling Saenuri Party is expected to pick a single candidate to take on incumbent Park Won-soon by April 25th. Seoul citizens will have to wait until June 4th to decide whether they want more of the same or a new face in City Hall. Kim Young-gil, Arirang News.
When you think of nationalism tearing apart regions, the latest flashpoint may be in Ukraine and Crimea, but here in Northeast Asia, a chronic pain with frequent flare-ups has plagued relations between Korea, China, and Japan.
For more on this explosion of nationalism that can be seen in military expansion and territorial creep, we bring in Dr. Jung Ki-ung, Senior Research Fellow at the Center for International Area Studies at Hankuk University of Foreign Studies in the studio. Thank you very much for joining us.
Nice to be here.
Well, Dr. Jung, what seems to be the main factors compounding the growing nationalism here in Northeast Asia?
When it comes to Northeast Asia, the origins of nationalism can be explained with two perspectives. One is Chinese-driven nationalism. Existing studies show when the per capita income of a state reaches around $5,000 to $7,000, the sentiment of nationalism reaches the highest point, and China is at the point. And another thing is that Chinese government intentionally encourages nationalist sentiment as a way of unifying the big country and securing the stability. And the rapid growth of China made Japan feel deprivation, and Japan's reaction was to go right.
Well, there are looming concerns that this nationalism is going to create friction between our countries, especially when it comes to our needed cooperation on North Korean issues. Do you think that's going to be a problem moving forward?
Well, it's not possible to predict, well, the future exactly. But what I can say clearly is that even though there is a possibility of breaking up the existing cooperation system, I don't think that it will break up easily. So we should remember that there is another important actor, the United States. And the U.S. has a lot of stakes in the region and, well, has a close relationship with the Northeast Asian countries. And I'm sure that U.S. will take a role for maintaining the peace and cooperation in the region. And we have witnessed that the United States, intervene in Japan's right of the shift. And in most cases, Japan don't go against, well, the U.S. recommendation.
Well, some see the Asia of 2014 as a new Europe of 1914, during which we saw miscalculations of balance and power lead to the outbreak of World War I. Now, do you see this as a possibility?
Well, some says like that, but my opinion is different. The situation of Europe 100 years ago is quite different from that of Northeast Asia today. And how can I put it? The world has been globalized, and the weapon system has been changing a lot. And the existence of international institutions will not allow the Northeast Asian countries to go to war altogether.
Japan's recent right-wing moves under the Abe administration seem to have really contributed to some of this nationalism and the tensions. Can we expect to see any peace-oriented policies out of this government?
Well, it depends on the situation, but at the same time, our efforts is needed. Well, we should remember that not all Japanese citizens agree with what the Prime Minister is pursuing. And I believe that there is a lot more Japanese citizens with common sense than those who are obsessed with right order shift and nationalist sentiment. Well, so what it should do now is to create a certain kind of transnational alliance with the Japanese citizens who value peace, prosperity, and humanitarianism.
The leaders of Korea and Japan are set to meet in The Hague in a matter of weeks now. Do you think they'll be able to reach some sort of an agreement or make any progress in terms of bettering their bilateral ties?
Well, for now, the situation is quite a kind of deadlock. So without the sincere apologies from Japan, I don't think that they can make a concrete result, even though they can not encounter, but they can meet together.
All right, well, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me.
If everything goes according to plan, Korea will have a leader fighting. The President
Your gateway to the day's biggest stories in Korea and around the world. Breaking news, the hottest interviews, and a whole lot more. Join Arirang's Sean Lim and Yoo Ji-hye from the heart of Seoul. Primetime news, weeknights, live at 10 on Arirang TV.
Next general elections. And Korean automakers aren't the only ones making inroads into the global market. The country's auto parts industry is also making great strides on the world stage, posting exports of more than $26 billion in 2013. Our Sung Ji-sun has more.
This factory produces automobile engines and transmissions 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, to ensure that shipments meet order deadlines. That's because demand for its products soared 12% from a year earlier, largely because of orders from automakers overseas, which now represents 40% of the plant's overall production.
The global market recognizes the high quality of Korean-made auto parts. In our case, we do not engage in aggressive promotion, but foreign buyers directly contact us for supply contracts.
This plant epitomizes a steady growth in exports of Korean auto parts, which is about double the pace of that for completely assembled cars. The recent expansion of the overseas production by local automakers Hyundai and Kia helped increase auto parts exports, but GM, Ford, Volkswagen, and other foreign companies accounted for well over a third of the parts exports.
Korea's auto parts exports logged a record $26 billion last year, becoming the country's 7th biggest export item. The industry is gaining momentum as it diversifies its trade partners, faces tough competition as it tries to move up in the industry's pecking order.
The toughest competition comes from Japan. According to a report released Monday by the Korea International Trade Association, Korea's auto parts export similarity index with Japan hit the highest at 0.56,
meaning over half of the industry's export items are identical to those of Japan's.
Many Korean auto parts have a competitive edge in pricing over those from Japan and Germany while offering just as good a quality. But market leaders in Germany and Japan keep pushing for higher standards, just as Chinese makers are fast catching up.
Experts say the big challenge for Korean auto parts makers is improving their research and development capabilities, particularly for environmentally friendly automobiles such as electric cars. 송지선, Arirang News.
Starting next spring, a clause in the Korea-U.S. Free Trade Agreement will kick in that will allow American firms to own program providers in Korea. As some industry insiders have raised concerns that Korea's broadcasting industry will suffer as a result, the government is already preparing. Our Na Yeongjong reports.
Korea is bracing for an era of heated market competition in its broadcasting industry. Come next year, American media groups will be allowed to own program providers or PPs in Korea under the Korea-U.S. Free Trade Pact ratified in 2012. PPs are those that create content or have acquired the right to broadcast taped television and radio programs, for example, terrestrial broadcast stations or cable channels. And to better cope with the upcoming change, officials from the ICT Ministry and the Korea Communications Commission put their heads together with industry experts to consider possible negative effects.
In order to keep a competitive edge in the rapidly changing environment and competition in the global market, the government came up with a comprehensive plan aimed at improving the nation's broadcasting industry last December. This plan will be fleshed out and finalized by the end of April.
Insiders say American media groups have been visiting Korea since late last year to conduct market research and evaluate its potential. But experts in Seoul say U.S. companies making a foray into the domestic market will not likely have an immediate impact in the industry.
The effects will not be visible in the short run, but because the U.S. dominates the world's content market, we do need a long-term plan. It could work for the better and serve as an opportunity for our contents to set foot into the American market.
Officials say the profit structure for the PPs should also be modified so they can focus more on producing creative content rather than relying on commercials. Na Yeongjong, Arirang News.
Let's get the latest on the top stories on the global front, from the fallout of the referendum results in Crimea to the mystery surrounding the missing Malaysian airliner. We go live to our Paul Lee at the News Center.
Paul, Russian President Vladimir Putin on Tuesday night made it official, annexing Crimea in defiance of the West. How are Washington and the European Union reacting?
Well, the West is continuing to push for greater sanctions on Moscow over its intervention in the region. But Russian President Vladimir Putin remains defiant and is showing no signs of backing down. Addressing a joint session of parliament on Tuesday, Putin said Crimea was of vital importance to Russia, underlining its historical and cultural links. Putin then signed a treaty with the leaders of Crimea for the Ukrainian Black Sea Peninsula to become part of Russia. Following the signing ceremony, the Kremlin announced it now considers Crimea Russian territory, despite strong opposition from the international community. Earlier, the European Union and the U.S. imposed sanctions and asset freezes against Russian and Ukrainian officials. Meanwhile, the Ukrainian parliament has approved the mobilization of up to 40,000 troops to counter Russian interference in the country. Experts say the current crisis in Crimea could spark a rapid shift in the geopolitical landscape here on the Korean peninsula. If the United States and European Union impose new sanctions on Russia, it may force Seoul to freeze economic cooperation projects with Moscow. Declining Russian-American relations could also have implications for dealing with North Korea. That's according to 38 North, a website run by the U.S. Korea Institute at Johns Hopkins University. Increased dialogue between Washington and Moscow on the North's nuclear program had helped to push forward issues related to the six-party talks. But the recent developments could make Pyongyang less inclined to make diplomatic concessions, especially on denuclearization. After 11 days and coordinated efforts from 26 countries, there's still no sign of Malaysia Airlines Flight 370. The Malaysian government said Tuesday that the search area has now been expanded to over 2.24 million square nautical miles. Acting Transport Minister His Hamudin Hussein said the focus is now on gathering satellite data, analyzing radar information, and deploying additional air and surface teams. Investigators say they still believe the aircraft's movements were consistent with deliberate action by someone on the plane. China's ambassador to Malaysia said that no evidence has been found that would link any of the Chinese nationals on board to a possible hijacking or terrorist attack. Heading to the United States, where scientists at the Harvard-Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics say they found traces of echoes of the Big Bang nearly 14 billion years ago. It confirms a crucial connection between quantum mechanics and general relativity predicted by Albert Einstein. If verified, experts say it could be one of the most important scientific discoveries in history. The gravitational waves were spotted by targeting a telescope on a specific area of the sky outside the galaxy known as the Southern Hole, where small fluctuations gave researchers new clues on how the early universe, galaxies, and stars were born. That wraps up our look at international stories making headlines around the world. I'll see you back here tomorrow night.
Hello and welcome to Primetime Sports. I'm Stephen Che. The world's #1 ladies golfer Park In-bi is set to hit the links at the JTBC Founders Cup and is seeking her first LPGA Tour win of the season to follow a recent victory on the Ladies European Tour. So come Thursday in Phoenix, Arizona, she'll face her top-ranked rivals Suzanne Petterson and Stacey Lewis on the greens, along with other stars like Lydia Go and Yu So-yeon. The 25-year-old Park is due for a win after finishing in the top 5 in her 2 previous entries on the tour. She also retained her top ranking for the 49th consecutive week. And heading to the ice, or not, figure skating Olympic champion Adelina Sotnikova is slated to sit out of the World Championships next week. Russia's Figure Skating Federation said they're not sending the 17-year-old Sotnikova so she can rest and prepare for next season, deciding instead to send Yulia Lipnitskaya. Meanwhile, pairs gold medalist Tatiana Volosazar and Maxim Tronkov won't be there either. And moving on to the Champions League, the second legs of the round of 16 continue on as Galatasaray visits Chelsea and Real Madrid meets Schalke. Now, Galatasaray's Didier Drogba returns to his old squad at Stamford Bridge, and it's going to be a bag of mixed emotions, but they'll all fade away as the two battle to advance after tying 1-1 in the first leg. Meanwhile, Real, who holds a 6-1 lead over Schalke, is expected to advance. And coming off the pitch, former FIFA Vice President Jack Warner received about $1.2 million following Qatar's successful bid to host the 2022 World Cup. And according to The Telegraph, one of Warner's companies was paid the money by one of the companies owned by disgraced former FIFA presidential candidate Mohammed bin Hammam. Now, FIFA has defended its code of ethics but failed to repel any of the controversy surrounding their bidding system. And here in Seoul, the women's KBL held their regular season awards ceremony, and Park Hae-jin of top team Uri Bank won the MVP honors. Meanwhile, KB stars Monique Curry took home the Best Foreign Player award. And heading over to the men's side for KBL playoff action, the KT Sonic Boom hosted the ET Land Elephants for Game 4. Now with KT up 2-1 in the series and at home, ET Land had to dig deep to survive. Now both teams start by struggling on the floor, and it's 29-28 ET Land up at the half. Now in the second half, Ricardo Powell leads the Elephants' charge. He ends with a game-high 24, and ET Land beats KT 72-66 to force the series-deciding Game 5. And that's all I have for now. This has been Stephen Che. I'll see you back here later for more from the world of sports.
These days, high pollution levels are more the rule than the exception here in Seoul.
That's right. For details, let's go over to our Kim Bo-kyung at the Weather Center. Now, Bo-kyung, how bad is the yellow dust and when will it go away?
Well, guys, we're still seeing high levels of yellow dust from the Gobi Desert and Mongolia here in the nation. Currently, Seoul is seeing 158 micrograms of yellow dust, which is 3 times the normal levels. Things are looking pretty bad over in Gwangju, where levels have soared to 305 micrograms. So those with respiratory problems must refrain from doing outdoor activities. Moving on, due to a high pressure front that is moving south from China, we're seeing clear skies across the board. The unwanted guests will gradually move down south by tomorrow afternoon. And other than that, tomorrow looks to be a cloudy day here in Korea with less than 5 millimeters of precipitation forecast in the southern regions. Taking a look at Wednesday's readings, Seoul, Gwangju, and Busan all reach 14 degrees, while Daegu makes it to 15. Moving on to other regions, Daejeon and Jeju peaks at 15 degrees, while Dokdo and Mount Kumgang top out at 8 and 2 degrees. That's all for now, but I'll see you again after midnight.
Thanks, Bo-kyung. And that's our broadcast on this Tuesday night. I'm Yoo Ji-hae in Seoul.
And I'm Sean Lim. Thanks for watching. We'll see you soon.